Fermi Paradox solutions. We are alone. I'm going to break this one down into two categories. One simple, one a little bit more complex. The first is pretty basic. We are literally alone. There is no other life in the universe. The second is that we aren't alone, but we may as well be. So, the first category, we are literally alone. I'm going to start this off with the classic quote, Arthur C. Clarke. Two possibilities exist. Either we are alone in the universe or we are not. Both are equally terrifying. Obviously, in this video, we're going to explore that we may be alone. On the simple scale of the universe, I think most people find this possibility hard to comprehend. I mean, 100 or more billion stars in our galaxy, 100 or more billion galaxies. There's no way we could be that special, right? But if we can't, again, back to the Fermi Paradox, where is everyone? So, for the first solution, that we are literally alone, there are a few possibilities here I want to go into of why we might be completely alone. Number one, we are the first instance of life in the universe. This has to be the biggest question in all of cosmology. We simply don't know how likely or unlikely it was for life to arise on Earth. Maybe we are the only life-bearing system in the universe. This may seem implausible given the scale, but somebody has to be first. Since our sample size is only one, it makes hypothesizing very difficult. But we do have some variables to go on. One is that we exist. Second is that we have not found any other life or signs of life anywhere else. Second, our solar system setup is very rare but also necessary for life. Jupiter has a very advantageous orbit for Earth life. It acts as a sort of a cosmic vacuum cleaner for potential impact objects that could hit the Earth. And I don't think anybody would argue that stability is likely an important factor for any planet to develop life. You can't have asteroids and comets rocking your planet all the time for life to develop. Not that Earth hasn't had some, we've had some, but we've also had our fair share of extinction events, but perhaps that's inevitable. You got to have some, otherwise your whole system would just be lifeless. There'd be no action, there'd be nothing to stir anything up. Perhaps that's necessary for life, such as, say, plate tectonics. I mean, they increase incidences of volcanic activity, but also recycle critical elements. They shake the Earth up, right? Another is the moon. It's critical for stabilizing our rotation. Is it possible life would have not have risen on Earth had we not had such a stable Earth-Moon relationship? I'm not sure. I'm sure I've missed some. I'm sure there are others here, but I think the point is taken that our setup is quite advantageous for Earth to have life. So perhaps we are rare in that regard. Third, perhaps we are alone now, but there have been other alien civilizations at other times. So it must be remembered that we've been technologically advanced for only the blink of an eye in human terms, let alone on Earth or galactic timescales. We may not be completely unique, but unique enough that our civilizational timeline has never lined up with another one. So perhaps civilizations don't last that long that they tend to overlap. That's not that hard to believe. I mean, we've almost destroyed ourselves quite a few times. And it also brings up, could you imagine if we did get to the point of exploring where the only thing we found was sort of alien graveyards? It would almost be like being the last man on Earth. Fourth in this is that there are other possibilities that I'm not sure I want to go into, like religious ones, simulation, multiverse, these kinds, but I'm going to save those for another video. We'll stick to the main three there first. This brings me to solution 2. We are not alone, but we may as well be. This is again a more vast topic that I'm going to break down into a few parts. First, near-light travel is very difficult in reality, and only a small percentage of technological civilizations will develop it. Add to that life may be exceedingly rare. So even if you do develop near light speed travel or light speed travel, it still is going to take a very long time to find these other rare civilizations. Now, near light speed travel is theoretically possible. There's no doubt about it. But perhaps it will be harder and are more monetarily taxing than we'd like. What if there is other intelligent life, but the distances are very great between the average two? So let me put it this way. Even at the speed of light, it would take, say, 2 million years to get to the nearest galaxy, Andromeda, at light speed. That's longer than Homo sapiens have even been around. What would we even be like in 2 million years? What if we are the only technological civilization right now in the Milky Way, but there is, say, one in Andromeda? Would it even matter? Would we even worry about it if there was? We would likely need to drift farther into the hypotheticals like wormholes and faster than light travel to make it possible to communicate or visit these other societies, but I think at this time that probably makes for better Hollywood films than realistic scenarios. So that moves me on to my second point, that there are other technological societies, but perhaps they're more pragmatic and or less curious than humans. No matter what kind of a future you may envision, even a Star Trek-like society where money is no longer needed, it's never mentioned, colonization should be assumed, I think, to be very expensive. Until we can develop, say, matter replicators or wonder materials, building starships and colonizing other bodies is not going to be a cheap endeavor. Perhaps most technological civilizations would rather just take better care of their own planet, or maybe stick close, maybe colonize a close moon or a close planet for a backup. Or perhaps they choose to use their money to fund possible solutions against asteroid bombardments or tidal waves or whatever may destroy cities, societies, etc., etc. Perhaps they're more pragmatic than to spend their money in space, which brings me to the second point, that maybe they're not as curious as we are. Curiosity plays a huge role in human society. There's no doubt about it. It's one of the main things, if not the main thing, that makes us who we are. It's why things like money, vacations rarely satisfy us, and that high you get when you reach your goal almost always wears off, because we evolve to be discontent, to get to the next valley and become discontent enough to explore the next one and the next one and so on. What if this is a rare quality? It's hard for us to imagine because it's so ingrained in us, but perhaps aliens simply aren't as curious as we are. I mean, from my perspective, I think it makes sense to grow, to have a bit of a backup solution, to expand. I think it makes good sense, but perhaps aliens wouldn't think like this. Hard to tell, because this is the way we think. So it's hard to know what we don't know. Third, life itself may exist. It may even be abundant, but intelligent and or technological societies are rare or non-existent. Basically, this is the point that technological societies are very uncommon, even if life is common. I find it hard to believe that life exists, but intelligent life doesn't, because we have species like dolphins and elephants on our planet. So to me, we have enough examples of life evolving into intelligent life, but it still doesn't explain why we've only had one instance of technological development in Homo sapiens, in humans. We may find life, but what if almost all or all life doesn't develop into tool-making technological societies like we did? Or if they perhaps just never develop certain types of technology that may be necessary for space exploration or expansion. Maybe their planet or moon lacks certain elements necessary for technological production, like some heavy metals or something. Again, hard to know. Fourth point, there are civilizations, but they tend to cluster. So for anyone with an understanding of randomness, this is what you'd expect. This is because randomness rarely means an equal distribution, right? Random doesn't mean equal. Randomness tends to cluster. So if the average galaxy has 10 technological societies. There may be some with 100 or more. There may be some with 0 or 1. We might be outside of a cluster. We might be in one that only has 1. So we may be the only ones in the Milky Way, even if maybe we're just on the far end of the bell curve that has almost none, right? So life may be common, intelligent life may be common, but we may just be outside of a cluster of it. So, on to the fifth point. Basically, this is my previous video, which you can see here, the dark forest theory. The dark forest theory is essentially that the galaxy and or universe is a dark forest, and essentially we're the only ones dumb enough to be exposing ourselves. For a more comprehensive overview, you should just watch the other video, link there. So, on to number 6. Perhaps the so-called discoverable age or communicative age of any advanced civilization is astonishingly short, because most societies tend to self-destruct. Is this really so hard to believe? How many times have we almost killed ourselves or destroyed our civilization? We clearly have the potential to. This is the last variable of the ever-popular Drake equation, and like many of the others, massive unknown. All it would take, in my opinion, is for this variable to be very small to make most of the other variables in the Drake equation meaningless. Because if this is really small, say 500 years or less, doesn't matter how many other civilizations there are for the most part. If they're only going to live for or communicate for a very short time, it doesn't even matter, because even if you can communicate with them, they may already be destroyed when you get there. So this moves me on to number 7. We can't read the signs and may never be able to read the signs. So we can't understand most of what even most intelligent life on Earth is communicating. We can't understand, from my understanding, we can't understand almost everything a dolphin communicates, let alone, say, ants or other species on Earth. So if we can't understand any of these, is it possible that maybe there is communications out there, but we just can't understand them? Maybe we're not as smart as we think we are. Like, we're a 2D character in Flatland, and we're unable to comprehend what a three-dimensional being even is, let alone what they're saying. So that's a possibility. 8th point, there are other intelligent civilizations, but they tend to be quite warlike and malevolent. In this scenario, we may have wished we just stayed at home. There's no guarantee that civilizations that spread or that we may encounter will be peaceful. After all, are we? Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe if you enjoyed it. More to come. Thanks again. See ya. Patreon below.